The last time I looked at this unit was about 8 years ago when I didn't fix it then. I just kind of put it aside and set it up on the shelf, and there it sat. We're going to take another shot at it and see if I can get this thing to work. Today I figured I would throw this old relic back up on the bench and see whether I can get this thing to work. Be an interesting project if I can. I looked at this a number of years ago, but never got around to getting it going. Kind of just set it aside. We'll see. I'll take another look at it and see whether I can get this to go. Now, you guys don't know what this is because all you're seeing is CCD, charge coupled device, and a start stop button. So obviously it's a camera, but what type of camera? This is an old Sony Betamovie, and if it doesn't look familiar, well, it's because most people have not seen this model. It is not a consumer camera. Here's the camera out of its protective case. The plastic is broken here for the door. Good old cheap plastic. So the lid is actually popped off of it. I'll have to try to glue this if I can ever get this thing to run. But this is a record-only camera. If you look back at some of my old videos that I did, I've got some videos that were shot on this camera up on my channel. Namely, one of the Las Vegas signs video. The second one. I did the first one with a tube camera, and then I did the second one with this. So I think it's called Las Vegas, and one's called Las Vegas Neon 1, I think, and the other one's Las Vegas and Reno. Anyway, I got two videos that I shot down in Las Vegas. The second one was done with this. You can tell because you can tell it's a CCD camera. It looks good, but you can tell it's a CCD camera. Anyway, this hasn't been used in years. It was put away, and when it was put away, it was working. And well, of course, like everything else that's packed away, things just, well, they don't work anymore after they sit around for a few years. So I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It might be a bad head. I mean, it shouldn't because it hasn't been used, but anything's possible. So I figured we'll take this camera apart and see whether I can get this thing to do anything other than nothing. So let me just pull some screws out here. I want to get the camera apart. One thing you'll notice on this is it uses the VF302. Serial number on this one, by the way, is 64. A2, which is the factory, and 00064 was the viewfinder. You can see the serial number there. It's a very early model. What's the serial number on the camera? And the camera is A200035. So this is serial number 35 for the camera body and serial number 64 for the viewfinder. So they didn't run them in series. In fact, knowing Sony, they probably had all of the bodies may have had an odd numbered serial number, and all the viewfinders may have had an even. But anyway, this is 35, this is 64, very early in production. I bought this camera in the States. I paid a lot of money for it. I bought this at a place called Sony Only in Portland, Oregon. I had to go down and buy the thing. I had to go down and pick it up because I didn't trust shipping it, and I paid like, I don't know, I think I paid $2,500, I'm pretty sure, for this camera. This was not available in Canada, this camera, so I wanted it bad enough I went down to Portland to buy it. And the reason that I bought this camera over, say, using a BMC, I guess it was the BMC 550, was the camera of the day that was equivalent to this, was because the consumer camera used an optical viewfinder and this one used an electronic viewfinder. And being a camera operator, you need an electronic viewfinder. And this one here was full manual focus, manual zoom with macro. It had an iris lock that would lock the iris at one specific setting, so you could zoom in. Looks like the zoom knob is broken on here. You can zoom in, focus, zoom out to frame, zoom in, focus. If it was a backlight situation, hit your iris lock. That would lock the exposure on your subject's face, and you could zoom out and the subject would be in perfect focus. This was designed as an economy ENG camera for broadcast, although it's not broadcast quality, but this was before the high 8 format really took off, and BETACAM was around, but BETACAM was also very expensive. So this was brought out by Sony as the disposable camera that news organizations could use to, say, go into dangerous situations like riots and so forth, where if the camera got tossed and trashed, they only lost a couple $1,000s, not $30,000. So, but it had enough features on it that could make the picture quality good enough that it could be broadcast. So that's why this camera existed, was just for that reason, so that it could be used for news gathering. It's a record only unit. Oh, look at the number of the chassis of this one. Look at that. Can you guys see the number? Interesting. The number off this one here, the chassis serial number 2, that's the factory, 00001. Could this be the first chassis that they made? Holy crap, I never noticed this before. 2 is the factory. All Sonys will start with like an A1 or an A2 or an A3 up. I think it goes as far as A8. So 2 was the factory. A was Japan. Then there was the number of which factory it came out of, and then the serial number followed. 00001. Holy crap, I could be holding the first chassis for a GCS1 ever made. We know that the camera itself has a very low serial number. The serial number of the camera is 35. So the camera was 35, but this chassis may very well be serial number 1. Now, if that's the case, that makes this thing a pretty rare unit, wouldn't you say? I think so. What's the date on this thing? Does it say? Anyway, GCS1. Down here is the place for the backup battery and the little switch here, high band off and on. That's for Super Beta. We're going to pull this thing apart. I'm going to power it up with a power supply because it needs 9.6 volts precisely. Tip negative, of course, because Sony put everything back asswards. Let's get this thing pulled apart. I know the excitement is mounting, and I would love to see it make a recording. I've got a beta tape kicking around here so that I can put a tape in and do some recording on this thing and see whether, first of all, I even get a picture in the viewfinder. This thing hasn't been turned on in so many years. I think I tried to make it work a few years. I even forget how long ago that was, but that was years and years ago. But wouldn't it be something if I can get this thing to record a picture? I don't even know what screws I got to take out to take this apart, so I'll just start undoing screws. Looks like there's pieces of plastic that are broken here, and that's just because plastic gets brittle and it falls apart. There's probably another screw under here somewhere. There's another screw. At least this didn't turn to mush like the later cameras. Screw's already out there. Did I just take that out maybe? The side cover should lift off if I get all the screws out. With any luck, this side cover, if I've got all the screws out, will lift off. I have a sneaking suspicion there's probably, that comes off like that. It's the Aris lock. That just operates that little lever. I have a sneaking suspicion there's another screw under here that needs to come off. Am I right? Oh yes, there's 2 more. I bet you these 2 have to come out. And then this will lift off, and then there's probably another screw under here. Beauty, huh? And there's of course a plug plugged in over here for the power. I think if I push this out, there we go, the switch block will detach from the rest of the unit, which means that I'll be able to power this thing up and plug the switch in and operate it without that side cover being in the way. My concern on this, of course, is the head. You see the head is all kind of pitted here because it's just been sitting out in all over all the years it's just received a lot of abuse, a lot of corrosion and stuff just from the salt in the air has gotten on the head. So if that's damaged the head chips at all, then that might be, I think I came to that conclusion before, but let's see if we can get a close-up of the head. The head chip is right here. Doesn't look to be broken, but nothing would have touched it. But if insects or something got in there and started chewing on the wires, then that's always a possibility that there's where our fault is. And of course, good luck finding one of these. This is it's two heads, but they're both on the same head chip, as you can see, because the way they threaded the tape 360 or damn near 360 degrees. You can see one guide comes up to here and the other guide comes down to there. So, but I'm just going to see if I can get a close look at this and get my magnifiers on and see if I can see any damage to the head before we even try to thread a tape. Both heads do appear to be intact from looking at them. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but I don't see anything broken on the heads. Whether they're going to make a recording a signal or not, possible. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect one of the wires for each of the heads, and we'll check to make sure that there is continuity, that the wire is not broken, because again, it's been sitting so long, I don't know. And with the corrosion that's here, I think when it stopped, it was probably sitting like that. And anything that, even though it was in a case, you can see if you look inside here, you look on the pinch roller, and there's all kinds of debris on the pinch roller and stuff. So this is just from the environment that it was sitting in. I don't even know if the belts are any good on here. I'm sure there's belts on here. Again, I haven't tried powering this thing up in so many years, but it'd be interesting to see if it even powers up, for starters. But we'll get to there in a minute. First things first, though, I do want to check the heads and just for continuity. So I'm going to unsolder the wire, one of the wires from each of the heads. That way I can check to see if we've got continuity. If we've got no continuity to the head chips itself, then it's kind of a waste of time to even bother powering it up, because it's not going to do anything, if you catch my drift, if there's open circuit. So we'll check continuity for the first head wire here, and it looks like we have continuity, and we'll check the continuity for the second head wire, and we indeed do have continuity. So the heads themselves look to be, well, at least they're not open, they're not broken. So the next thing to do is we'll see if this thing will actually get power. Remember that these cameras cannot output to a TV because they operate at a non-standard horizontal scanning frequency, so it will display on the tube here if the camera is working. So let's turn on the power. I've got it connected to power, and I see a light up here, and I see a picture on the viewfinder. It's not a very good picture. It's very blurry, but there is indeed a picture. Maybe the lens is dirty. There is definitely a picture on that viewfinder, as you guys can clearly see. Can I focus it on anything? These things required a lot of light. They were CCD cameras after all. And there is, as you can see, my hand, I can wave in front of the camera, and there definitely is a picture. Doesn't look great, but there you go. Now you can see my hand. Hello, it's working. That part's working. So I guess the next thing to do is to try putting in a tape, see if it will open. So I'll push the eject button on the back. Well, that didn't work. Oh, things are starting to work. What if I push this button down here to make it think there's a tape in it? Oh, look. It turns on and the head drum spins. If I push the record button, it's turning. The head drum is spinning, the capstan is turning, and the take-up spool is turning. And that's all this does, because this camera has no way to rewind, it has no way to fast forward, and has no way to play back. The only thing this camera is capable of doing is recording. And we have to take the tape and put it into a beta machine to see if I get a picture. I'm getting excited. Maybe I should hold my excitement, because I don't think it's going to record, but it's doing it's at least powering up, and we know that the camera is processing a picture. So let's just hit the eject button. We'll watch the guide move on this, or the guides. You can see the two guides here. The tape is pulled all the way around from there to there. Hit eject, and that's what it does. Let me grab a tape. The safety tab is not missing from the tape, so we'll just load the tape in, and we'll watch it load. Okay, hit record. Oh, it seems to be sticking now, doesn't it? That's probably the crap that's on the head. We'll see if we can get it to spin up. I'm just seeing if I can get this thing to actually stay going for more than a few seconds. I think what's happening is the take-up is going slack is what's happening. Yeah, you can see it here. If we watch the tape here, maybe the belt that spins the take-up spool is slipping a bit. But it's encouraging. If I could, I'm going to take a look at what comes off this and see if I see any glitching or anything, if it's attempting to record. You can see the tape coming slack over here, watch. See? So I'm just going to take this tape out now and just see whether there's anything recorded on it. Alright, so this is what I'm seeing. Now I did hit my fingernail against the picture, or against the head drum. Maybe the head's just clogged. Oh, look. I see something happening here. Holy crap. That kind of looks like a picture from a camera to me, doesn't it to you? There might be hope for this camera. There might be hope for this camera. That was the end of it. Now the work starts. Now I have to see whether I can actually get this thing to, the take-up spool, to have enough torque on it to spin the tape. I believe it's just done through a belt down here, and this belt is probably almost completely turned to mush. Let's just close this down and make it think there's a tape in here, and we'll hit record. You see, this is turning, but there's not much torque on here, and that is going to be that belt right there that is slipping. I wonder if we can clean it or even replace it. I don't know how hard this belt would be to replace. It might be a real, well, it might be an easy one. It's hard to say. It looks just to be like a regular belt that's just running around here, but I might get lucky. I might be able to clean this belt and just get enough torque. But that's what's happening. You see, it's working now, but if I stop the reel from turning, it's going to go to shutdown, which is what it's doing. It's recording something now, so the head was clogged, and I just used my fingernail between the tape and the head, and it's unclogged it. So that part's working. We know the electronics work because I got a picture. How cool is this? I might have an old vintage Betamovie with serial number 0001 operational. I think I can remove the cassette basket here just to make things a little bit easier to get to. So switch to a different bit on my screwdriver. There should be 4 screws that hold the tape compartment in place. The BMC 1000 was the closest consumer Betamovie to this one. The BMC, and I had a BMC 1000 as well. I sold it. I wish I'd kept it. You know, kicking myself now for not keeping it, but at the time I had a guy that was who was a real Beta fan. I mean, it's not recently I sold it. It was probably back in the 90s, and I had a guy that was he was looking for one, and it was when I still worked in the business. I worked in the shop, and he came into the shop looking for one, and I said, "Hey, I've got one," and I think I sold it to him for, I probably sold it to him for $400 or $500 at the time, because he just wanted to have one. He had the SLHF 1000, machine, and he was looking for the BMC 1000, and they were out of production at this point. So he was just in the shop, and I said, hey, I've got one, I'm not using it. He's like, you want to sell it? Oh, sure, I don't need it, I'll sell it to you. I don't know if I regretted selling it at the time. At the time I was a starving technician, and I was just glad to see some money for something that I hadn't been using and hadn't used for a number of years. So I think I was probably pretty happy to unload it, and the fact that someone wanted it, and I was at that time, I'm pretty sure I had my GCS1 by that point. So I was, or not my GCS1, my EVW 300. So I was doing everything on high 8 back then. So, you know, beta, who wants beta? Who wants Betamax? And of course I had BETACAM, right? My professional stuff was being done on BETACAM, not SP, just regular BETACAM oxide tape. And I wasn't using this one, and I wasn't using the 1000. They were just kind of sitting collecting dust, and I sold him the 1000 as opposed to this one because he wanted the Beta 1 SHB super high band. This one's Beta 2. So this is super beta. It's compatible with regular consumer beta machines. I wonder how this comes off. I think that just wraps around here. So if I pop the belt out, it's just a regular. There's nothing fancy about this belt. I might even be able to just clean it and get a little bit of extra torque on here. I'm curious as to whether I can trick the machine into loading up. Well, there's no tape in it. Where's the switch? The switch is actually part of the cassette basket. So if I do that, haha. And if I hit the record button, I guess I have to push the button down to do that. I just want to see if it's slipping on the, because I can see the belt turning, right? Well, maybe this the belt is slipping. Let's just try cleaning it first. I'll try cleaning this belt with, because it does have torque, it just doesn't have a lot of torque. So maybe if I just clean the belt, it might be enough torque just to make this thing work for, at least for demonstration purposes. I don't know what the hell this crap is on here. It looks like maybe it might be mold or something. That's probably what it is. It's probably mold. So I probably shouldn't be inhaling the spores. Anyway, let's try cleaning the belt. So I'm just going to use some isopropyl alcohol, and we'll just clean the belt in case there's any oils or anything else that's sticking on here that's making it slippery. I mean, it hasn't turned to mush, that's for sure. And you don't want too much tension on this belt because then it could add too much tension. It could stretch the tape. I may have to change it anyway, but we'll see. It's just I would like to avoid changing it if I have to, unless I have to, because for one, I don't know that I've got the right size of belt. That's for starters. And again, this is more just for the nostalgia reasons of fixing this thing. It's not that I have any use for it. It's gonna, if I get it working, then great. But I'm not going to be using it, and I certainly won't sell this camera. This is one I'm going to keep, just because of the history behind it. This is based on the first camcorder ever. Was the Betamovie. Now, this is not the first model. Like when I say I've got chassis 00001, that would be this out of this model, I would think. I mean, that just because there was the BMC 110, which was the tube-based version, and then there was the BMC 220, which was also an autofocus version of the tube-based camera, and then there was the first of the CCD line. Was the consumer was the was the BMC 550, and this, I think this was out before the BMC 550. The professional one came out, but the Real interesting that that chassis number is 0001. Yeah, that torque's coming up a little bit on here. I'll just let this dry and see what happens. Alright, so now I've let this dry, and there's a lot more torque on here now. You can see the belt moving when I do that. Now there's a lot more belt. You can see or a lot more torque even when I turn it backwards. You can see the belt is actually turning. So it may have just been, over the years, just contaminants getting on it made it slip, because it's certainly not stretched. But we'll try this, because this might be enough to make it work. So we'll try that. I'm just going to shut it off. I guess I have to eject. Hit the eject button and unthread the tape. And we'll just release this wherever it was released. That. Alright, now I'll just throw this back together. Power this thing up one more time here, and see if it will record now. Okay, power on. Of course it's going to do this again until the tape gets unstuck. I had this problem before with this tape. Let's just, we'll just, oh, did it not, it didn't thread right. That's right, it missed the back tension arm. We'll just try that again. It missed the back tension arm. Why? Did I not put this thing together right? Oh, there it is. Okay, now it's threaded. It's just when the tape threaded, it didn't thread over the back tension arm, and of course it had full back tension, and that stopped it from going. Oh, it's still sticking. Is it the tape? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. It might be the tape. I'll wave in front of the camera here. Let's just point this thing around and see what it can see. You can see my hand waving in front of it. Hello everybody. We're recording this on an old, the sound should be there too, an old Sony GCS1 Betamovie from like the 1980s. 1985, I think. Yeah, September 1985. That's when this one was made, and I bought it right around that time. Like it had just come out, and it was not even available in Canada. This model, like this would have been sold through Matrix Professional Video Systems in Vancouver, but they had not received the stock. So I went down to a place down in Portland, made the drive, made the 7-hour drive. I think it was about 7 hours, 6 hours to get there. Made the day-long drive down to Portland to buy it for, I think it was like I'm going to say 22 or 2300 US dollars. Anyway, this thing appears to be recording. I'll show you guys this beautiful chassis. That's a work of art. While it's doing this, I'll talk to you about how this works, because this was completely different. Like if you look at a beta head, and I'll show you. Do I have one? Do I have a beta drum kit? Well, I don't think I do. I do have a disc, yeah. So this is a standard beta head I'm holding in my hand here. You can see how much bigger this head drum is. In fact, the inner circle here is almost the size it is. Okay, not quite, but there's a beta head. You can see the size difference. So what Sony came up with on this, and it's totally different than how the VHS. People are going to comment and say, "Oh well, VHS-C had a smaller head drum as well." Yes, it did, but the VHS-C was a smaller drum to begin with. It wasn't as small as this. Okay, I think the VHS-C drum ended up being about the size of this, but you got to remember that the VHS full-size drum was a lot smaller than the Beta full-size drum. To do the same thing on beta that they did on VHS would not result in a drum that size. It would result in a drum more similar to what a full-size VHS drum was. How the VHS system and 8mm that uses a subcompact drum like the old TR series cameras, they work the same way. They use a smaller drum. How they differ is the way that the tape is wrapped. On a normal VCR, whether it's Betamax or 8mm or VHS, you have two heads opposing on either side. There they are. This is broken, so I don't have to worry about touching them, but this one's broken. And the tape is wrapped 180 degrees. So when one head reaches the end of its travel on the tape, the next head is ready to start. What they did on the compact head drum for VHS, for the compact VHS and the full-size cameras, because they used the same drum, and 8mm, was they put four heads on. So you had four heads 90 degrees apart from each other. They wrapped the tape 270 degrees around the head drum. And then how they operated was, well, if this is the start of your track here, your track doesn't end here. Your track ends over here. So as the head drum is spinning, I'll draw this on here just so that you guys can figure it out. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is an A head, right? It starts here and it ends over there. So by the time it rotates around to there, the next head that's in position is the second head, which is a B head. As it rotates, because it's counterclockwise, so I'm just going to go like that. This becomes an A head again, and then this one's a B. So you can see what they're doing. They're stepping ahead. So the tape is wrapped, and as the tape spins around and it gets recorded by the A head, by the time the tape gets to the end of its travel, the B head, which would normally be the one on the opposite side for a 180 degree wrap, is in position, but in this case it's this one. So they're stepping ahead 90 degrees at a time. They can then run the head drum 50% faster because the circumference is smaller, so to keep the same relative tape to head speed, you have to run the head drum faster. So they run the head drum 50% faster so that in the same time, so in other words, in that 1/60th of a second, you've now covered 270 degrees, and then the next head is in position. The result was you've always got a head in contact with the tape at all times, and that allows the recording to be standard, and you can play it back and you can do everything you can because you're going to switch between four heads, and you just have a little more elaborate switching circuit. You need 4 recording amplifiers, 4 preamps and so forth to play it back, but the result is the camera can play back. Now what Sony did on this, if we look at the Betamovie has 2 heads, but they're side by side. They're both living next to each other. The tape is wrapped almost 360 degrees. Not quite, but if you look down here, you'll see the tape comes up and it ends lower than it starts. So the tape is actually pulled up and it's pulled down. One head, so the head drum is almost operating at double the speed. In fact, it is. I think it is double the speed, or pretty close to it. The head spins around to record one field. It ends here, and then the next head picks up and records the B field. But there is a gap between the two of them. It's not a full 360 degree coverage. But if we look at it, if I try to point it out, the one head ends about there, and the other head doesn't begin until about there. So you've got a portion of the tape, say between there and there, we're looking at that, where there's no signal recorded whatsoever. And that's a problem. You can't have that. So how do they compensate for that? They speed up the horizontal so that the signal gets recorded faster, and then it allows for the gap to occur during vertical interval when the beam is swinging up to the top of the screen where there's no signal recorded, but there is no signal. but they speed up the number of lines. They speed up the horizontal oscillator so that they can get that entire signal recorded. The entire 262.5 lines that are recorded per field are recorded in a shorter duration of time so that you can get your sync pulses and everything on the tape, right? You have to do this because otherwise there would be a gap where there's no sync pulses, and that no sync pulses mean you're not going to play the tape back. So they speed up the horizontal circuitry. The horizontal oscillator is sped up. Vertical is not. The vertical still runs it the same, but they speed up the horizontal so that they can get through all of the timing information. All the lines of video are recorded before the tape is out of contact with the head, including recording the synchronizing signals. Then there's that brief pause right down here where you can see that there is no contact between the tape and the drum. You can see it. There's a gap right there. That's dead space. But the synchronizing signals have already been recorded on the tape. And then we pick up with the next frame. And it was very ingenious the way they did it. They sped up the horizontal oscillator. The problem with doing that was it made the signal incompatible. The machine could not play back an image. You would need a TV that was modified with a higher horizontal oscillator frequency. And the guys that service these at the service bar, I never serviced them because I didn't have the equipment, but they could hook up, they could force these machines to play back. There's test ports on that they could connect to that would give them the video signal coming off the tape, but the video signal of course had the sped up horizontal oscillator, horizontal frequency. They had to use a monitor that had a switch on it that they could switch it, and basically what it did is it cranked up the horizontal hold on the TV. If you had an old TV that had a manual horizontal hold, I guess you could screw it in and speed the frequency up to make it play back. But the thing with this is the tape that comes off here, when you make the recording that comes off the tape is compatible when you put it in a Betamax machine. So let's do that now. This has been recording for several minutes as I've been talking to you guys about this. Let's take the tape, stop it. See how this worked? When you stopped it, it just stopped the tape. It used the tension when you released when you stopped it. It locked the tape hub, and then it used the back tension arm that swung back to actually pull the tape back, so it did a bit of a backspace. So if you watch it, you'll see the guides move. See, watch when I hit pause. It did a backspace record, but it did it all mechanical because there's no way to rewind the tape. We watch it when I stop, right? Tape comes slack, right? This mechanical arm pulling back. There it is on playback, or on record. When I press the stop button, watch the arm. It'll pull back a bit. When the tape goes slack, it actually pulls the tape back. And if you look, if I zoom the camera in, we'll start and stop it a few times here. See the tape moving? And the tape backs up a little bit. That's just a couple frames. See? It's all mechanical. That's to take care of the glitch when you stop your recording. It was genius how these cameras worked. Okay, eject. Let's play the tape back. Okay, so there's the recording, the playback. So that's what I was able to record. So obviously it's not recording properly, but at least it's recording something. A nice out of focus blur mess of a picture. Oh, it thinks it's in beta 3. That might be why it might not be recording control track. So I'll clean the heads on it, but the machine's playing in beta 3. That's probably why the picture looks like crap. It's possible that the bias circuit is no good, but it's also possible that the audio record head is covered in crap. I mean, the full race head is over here. It's got two. Of course, my light's always in the way, right? It's got two heads over here. One of them, I believe, is just being used as a sensor. I think this one's being used as the sensor to detect the metallic end on the tape for when the tape ends. and this one's being used as a full erase. I think that's what they do, because I don't see a coil for detecting the end of tape. But let's just take a look at the condition of the audio head. Oh yeah, well that might explain something. I didn't even look at this. Take a look at the crap that's on the audio head. It's covered in garbage. Now this might explain why it didn't record anything, including the control track. Well, let's just clean this up. To say this thing's been sitting so long, it's just pitted with crap. Might explain why it's not recording properly. We'll just clean that up and see what happens. We'll try it again. It feels like something on there, right? It doesn't. It's not like tape oxide. This feels like something that's just from the atmosphere, just dirt, pollution, and crap. But it's really dirty, really dirty. It reminds me of that 3/4 inch machine that I worked on a number of years ago. That the audio head was just caked in garbage, right, and crap. Okay, we'll try another recording. I've just kind of cleaned the head up a bit. For all I know, there's probably mold inside the lens too. It's been sitting so long. Just one never knows how bad this is, but. Let's see if this will play back now. So I'm just going to record for about a minute. I'll do it off camera, and then we'll try playing it back and see what happens. If I look at the head down here, we see that there's a control track pulse, and if I look at the audio side, we'll see that there's an audio bias signal there. Oops. There's our audio bias. My sensitivity down a bit. So we have a bias signal for audio, the bias signal there. If you look over on the erase head, there should be the bias signal. There's the erase bias, but it's not recording. And I think the head is just completely clogged up. So I'm going to have to try cleaning that head again. The tape's not passing over it properly. That's always a possibility. But yeah, let me just try scraping this off a little more with my fingernail. See if I can get this thing to record. It's the signal's there, but it's not recording a control pulse. But it's there, and the audio bias is there, but it's not recording any audio. In fact, we can still hear print through the old audio that's not being fully erased by the erase head. Incidentally, by the way, this is the drum motor over here. It's a belt-driven drum. It looks like it's just a regular DC motor here that spins the drum. It's a belt-driven drum on this one. But you guys might find that fact a little bit interesting. Okay, I'm going to do something that's completely unorthodox and probably dangerous. I'm going to use the end of a screwdriver to try to scrape the crap that's clogging the head, because the head itself is not recording a signal, and I think it's just due to all the crap that's around the edge of the head. Just going to go over here very, very lightly to see if I can scrape off this debris. I don't know whether it's salt, because we live like a block from the ocean, right? So there's a lot of salt in the air. I don't know whether it's salt that's contaminated the head or what, but I had the same type of problem with my 3/4 inch machine. I couldn't get any sound out of it, and I basically had to scrape the crap that was on there. I've tried cleaning it with alcohol, I've tried cleaning it with Freon, I've tried cleaning it with water, and it just won't come off. It's almost like corrosion. So I'm just going to try to scrape off this crap that's on both the top and the bottom portions of the head, which is of course where the control signals are recorded, as well as where the audio signals are recorded. I mean, really, at this point in time, I've got nothing to lose, right? I've got nothing to lose. It's either going to make it record or it's not. And even if it records, it's not going to record that well. You can hear the motor, the belt slipping for the drum motor there too. Yeah, I can hear the drum motor belt is slipping. What else is going to go wrong with this? This is the loading motor over here, drum motor. Okay, we're making progress. Okay, now I can hear some audio. Okay, I'm going to wave my hand in front of the camera on this recording. Okay, there we go. This is the current recording. So I've got it now. I got the control track head clean enough that it's actually recording a signal. Now this tape is very, very old, so that could be part of it. The tape is worn out, but at least we're making progress. Okay, here's a good shot. So you see all the crud that's on the edge here. That's what I'm trying to get rid of. I'm trying to clear that crap out. Because I think what's happening is this is holding the tape. There's a bunch of crap right along both sides of the head. Right down in here. Make sure that video head's out of the way. But right down in here on both sides, there's a whole bunch of corrosion down on both sides, and I think what our problem is this is actually holding the tape away so it's not making contact. That's the part that records the audio, and that's the part that records the control track. But so I'm just basically using the edge of a screwdriver. Kind of unorthodox, isn't it? Probably magnetic too. More than likely the screwdriver is magnetic. I guess I'll have to degauze this, but I'll have to use my demagnetizing tool down here when I finish with this. But basically what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to clean this crap that's along this edge here. Because I think what our biggest problem is this crap is holding the tape away from it's not making good contact with the actual head itself, and it's not making a recording. Okay, there's a recording I just made. It just clicked. You know, the capstan, everything's driven by this one motor. Watch the capstan shaft down here. Do you see the capstan shaft? When I turn the drum, the capstan shaft turns too. It is belt driven. So we've got more belts. We've got a belt that drives the head drum, but we also have a belt that drives the capstan. You see, when I spin the head drum, the capstan shaft turns as well. So everything is fed off this one motor. It turns the head drum, it turns the capstan shaft, and that also turns the take-up spool up here, because that's all driven to the same gears. Interesting. One motor does everything. So yeah, we probably need to change some belts. That's probably part of the problem with this unit, is we've got slipping belts below under the circuit board, which shouldn't be too hard to get to. But we've also got that recording problem still with the audio. Is quite noisy. It's starting to record something because I'm getting the head just a little bit cleaner. It's still pretty dirty, as you can see down here. It's still got a lot of debris. I don't know what that is that's on there. But whatever it is, it certainly is creating a lot of headaches. I'll pull the other side cover off here so that we can check out the belts on this thing. See where they go. I'd like to... okay, so that cover comes off just like that. That was pretty simple. Now, the circuit board here should lift off. And I should see the belts. Oh, I do see the belts. It's a nice little flat belt in there. Looks like there's a couple of them. Let's flip down the board or flip out the board or whatever. Flip off the board, whatever we have to do to get into this side. As you can see, it's all nicely shielded. I don't think there's any surface mounted parts in this. It'll be all through hole. That's why the caps haven't leaked on it. Back focus adjustment, I think, is what that is. I know there's not a lot of these things left around. There's a few people have got them. I've seen a few of them come up for sale, and people are asking ludicrous amounts of money, like, you know, $300-400 for an old BMC 110. Yeah, I'd give you $20 for one. You know, maybe if I see one show up again, I'll offer someone $20 for it, because that's about what it's worth, just as a toy, right? Just as a toy. Okay, this should lift up this board to reveal that we have a series of belts in here. Looks like there's 3 of them. Looks like there's 3 belts. There's 3 flat belts here, and they're little skinny belts too. I might have some. Holy crap! There's a lot of circuit boards in here. Okay, now we can see. Now we can see what's in here. So we've got the main motor over here, and it's got a belt, a flat belt around here. And then there's another flat belt that goes to a midway pulley right there. So that's what turns the capstan motor. There's a capstan belt here. So you got a main belt, and this one here appears to be slipping because if I just have to breathe on the drum, and the drum slows down. I think the other ones are probably okay, but this one here, I think I'll change this one if I've got one, and I probably do because it's a little skinny belt, and I have a whole bunch of these little skinny belts. Let me see if I can find one to change that out. Okay, I'm just fitting a belt on. I actually took the capstan belt and I put the capstan belt over here onto the main belt, and I found another belt for the capstan belt which was a little bit smaller, and this appears to give me a little more torque from this motor so it doesn't slip quite as easy going to the drum itself. We'll try this. I'll just try plugging this in, and I won't put it all back together. I'll just plug it in and see whether it spins. Plug the head drum back in here. This is the record amplifier there. I'll just throw like 1 or 2 screws in, just 1 screw maybe, or 2 screws just to hold it in place so that it doesn't it's got ground and so forth, right? Alright, let's see if it stops this time. And the tape appears to be moving, and it's not slipping now. So we got a little more torque now. Don't hear the motor spinning up anymore. It looks like it's recording. It's not slipping now. Got a little more torque now. So I put in a fresh tape that had some blank section on it where there was nothing ever been recorded. It's actually the back end of the Sony training seminar tape. Look at the creases coming out of the pinch roller. This thing's got a bad pinch roller. You can see it. The tape is clear going in, yet we got creases coming out here. This is why it's not recording properly. See that? So yeah, this has got a bad pinch roller. So I'm going to have to call it a day on this one. I mean, it's got other problems, but at least, you know, it is working better than it was when I started on it. But we'll play this tape back and just see whether I made, you know, whether it recorded anything on here. I was wondering where all these creases coming from in the tape. Put a brand new tape in because the other one, well, this is not new tape, but this was only recorded for the first couple of hours, so there's some blank tape at the end of here, and it's putting creases in it. So next piece is going in the drum. I think it's clear going in. Yeah, we've got creases coming out here. This is why it's not recording properly. See that? And this has got a bad pinch roller. So I'm going to have to call it a day on this one. So there we go. That's the official diagnosis. I made a lot of progress, but sometimes you can't save them. And this is one such case. That's why when I was putting this long L830 tape in, I didn't notice it was creasing too much, but I guess it was. I just wasn't paying attention. Yeah, it's doing the same, you see. It's putting creases in the tape, as you can see. And that's causing the tape to ride up and down. That's going to be the pinch roller. So that's why it's not recording the sound properly, even though the head itself was all gunged up. I cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and cleaned it, but the pinch roller is worn out and damaging the tape. You can see it here. You see the tape fluctuating as it's going around, and as the pinch roller is damaging the tape, it's pulling the tape away from the audio head and the control head, as you can see right there. Besides the fact that the head itself is in rough shape, but yeah, pinch roller's bad on this one. So that's all I can do. Anyway, now you saw an old Betamovie, and a little classic piece of Sony Beta history. This is the first, well, not this one. The BMC 110 was the first one, but this is what started the entire Beta revolution for camcorder, or camcorder revolution. This was it, right? This was the first camcorder, or the BMC 110 was the first camcorder, and then then they had the 220, and then the 550. But this I believe this one was out before the 550. Then the 550 came out, and the 660, and then the 1000, which was essentially the same machine but different different pulley size, so that it ran at beta 1 instead of beta 2. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. Unless I can figure out some way to fix this pinch roller, we're going to end this now. Here's the pinch roller itself. I pulled it off the machine. As you can see, the actual core will actually fall right out of it. It's just completely shot. I don't know if rubber renew will do anything to this or not. We'll try that. I don't think it's going to make any difference, but it's worth a shot. I'll just try cleaning this crap out of here, and we'll try sticking this back on, and I'll try some rubber renew on the actual rubber itself. I don't think it's going to make any difference, but it can't hurt at this point, right? One last try. I put the pinch roller back in after gluing it back on and putting some rubber renew on. Let's see if it's still going to chew the tape. Okay, now it's moving. Is it eating the tape? Okay, I don't see any wrinkling yet. Well, let's just keep an eye on this and see if it's going to wrinkle the tape. So far so good. I don't see any creases going in the tape here. If we zoom the camera in, you'll see what I'm talking about. Seems to be riding fairly true over here as well. So I wonder if I'll get a better picture. Maybe it'll work better this time. That's always... Whoops. I stopped it. That's always the hope, is that it will work better. We'll just make a recording for a few seconds here. Eject the tape, and I'll try it in the other machine and see whether I've made any improvement. Whether it's recording sound and recording a control track, because that's where our problem was, is it wasn't recording a control track properly. But that worn pinch roller, of course, pulling the tape at the angle it was, that could certainly affect the ability for the record head to record a signal. So let's try this. Put it in the machine and see if it plays. Holy crap! I think that's looking a lot better. It's recording picture and sound, although the picture is really blurry.
Eject the tape, and I'll try it in the other machine and see whether.
So we've got the recorder working now. After all that trouble, I've got it recording. I've got it recording picture and sound. Sounds like there might be still some background sound from before. But that's okay, because these are designed to be used with a blank tape anyway. If you're recording on a new tape or a bulk erased tape, you wouldn't have any sound from before. The fact that it's actually playing a picture, though.
So I wonder if you're going to get a better picture.
Yeah, you see?
Better this time. That's the hope. Always the hope is that it will work better.
So I'm going to call this video a success. I'm going to call this one a success for this part.
And I'll try it in the other machine and see whether I've made any improvement.
Okay, so I'm going to end this now because this is going to be a multi-part. I'm going to pick this up tomorrow. I'm going to get into the camera section and see if I can get that camera to look better now that the recorder's working. I'm actually getting quite excited because I never thought that this thing would work. When I looked at this thing probably 10 years ago or however long ago it was I looked at it, I was sure that the head was shot just because I looked at all this crap that was on the head and the fact that it wasn't recording anything whatsoever. But here we have it now, a new belt. Scraped the crap off the audio control head that was just covered like just covered in corrosion. Take the pinch roller apart, put some rubber renew on the pinch roller, and then glue it back onto the shaft with some super glue, crazy glue, whatever. And now it's recording. So we got to deal with the front end now because the picture is blurry. That's likely the lens needs to come apart. But we'll deal with that on a future video. I'm going to probably look at it tomorrow because it's still all apart. I'm going to end this one now. Stay tuned. You have not seen the last of this camera. I want to see if I can get this thing working properly. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.